Yeah.
I don't want that.
Elena, are we ready? Yep. Do you want it? I'll take it from you.
Right. That's fair.
Mike, how's it going?
Good.
Good to see you.
Right.
I know we're doing this much.
Okay, hello everyone. We're gonna get started.
I was just curious because it was
Okay, we're gonna start at 6:02. For those of you guys that don't know me, I'm Jessica, I'm the president. Grace Ann, vice president. It's probably Trevor. Okay, go with membership.
Elena, secretary.
Okay, go ahead and take a look at the minutes from November. Have you guys looked that over, and I'll get a first and second motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 2024 general PTO meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you, motion approved. Okay, so we have some unfinished business from last week. I absolutely botched the voting last month, and I apologize for that. I got way ahead of myself and I did not vote properly. With that being said, we go by this book for the bylaws called the Robert's Rules of Order. I took it upon myself to kind of read through this entire book and just make sure that everything that we were doing was correct, we were voting correctly, the procedures were correct, and I kind of found a couple things in there that we are not doing correctly. So with that said, voting is going to look just a little bit different going forward. So the way that the voting is going to happen is teachers will bring this green form to us. They will present it. They'll talk about it, whatever. And then after they're done talking, we will do a first and second motion. What that motion means is when you do a first and second motion, that means that whatever the teachers just talked about, you want to talk about here and discuss it and vote on it. If you don't want to vote on it or discuss it, then no motion will be done. If nobody motions on it, then we're disregarding it. If we get a first and second motion, we'll be able to discuss. You guys can talk about pros, cons, questions for the teacher, whatever you guys have going on. Once we get the first and second, I already said that, sorry. Okay, so once all the questions have been asked and the discussion is over, I opted, there's 3 different ways of voting. One is saying aye. The other one is raising the hands. And then the other one is taking like a ballot. So I opted to do a hand. It's just clear, it's cleaner. We know who's in favor, who's not in favor. So I will say all in favor, please raise your hand. If you can keep your hand up, that way Grace Ann can take numbers and figure out how many of you there are. And then after that, I will say all opposed. Keep your hand up for all opposed. We'll count those hands. And then once voting has taken place, the majority wins. And so then I will say all in favor 1 or all opposed 1. And then I will say motion is approved or motion is denied. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Do you take votes online or only for those in person?
We heard the rules. We can take them online. I haven't looked into it too much because we have YouTube set up and I don't know if we have the comments.
We do have comments turned on so people could say like, my name is this person, I'm a member, and I'm voting yes or no. or whatever.
So we're only taking votes from members of the kids in school, right?
Like from here right now?
Yes, the kids that attend to school, like I have a kid who goes to Drew Elementary School, it will be just my vote if I'm a member, right?
Right, yes.
Not outside, okay.
Yes, yes, and you guys can only vote if you've paid your dues for this year, so dues are $10, $5 for extra for the second parent. If you guys have not paid your dues, then you are not able to vote. Is there any other questions?
I do. Is there any consideration for voting a different way for a ballot? Just because I feel like some people might feel more inclined to vote how they truly feel if they're not.
Yeah, so it was actually brought up by Elena to do like a QR code, and putting it up on the screen. If we get enough requests, I'm open to scanning that QR code and then getting it in that way. And it would be presented right now, you know, all at the same time. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so with that being said, we do need to vote. Jesse, sorry, I forgot we need Kylie. You might grab Kylie. In the meantime, while he's grabbing Kylie, we're gonna do the mascot vote. That is something that we voted on last time, but again, I botched the whole thing. So we're gonna vote on getting a mascot. It kind of wasn't clear last time, so we had put a cost of up to $2,000. And that's simply just because we have to get a customized costume if we want one. They have set costumes that are a set price, but those are super scary for like elementary kids, and we didn't really want to like scare them. So with that being said, I would, if this gets approved, then I would send in to 2 different companies for a costume. They'd customize it, they bring it back, we'd get the quotes. If it got approved, then I would bring it to you guys at the next meeting, what 2 costumes there are, and then we can vote on which costume we like the best. So that is why the cost is up to $2,000. It's just on the, it's between like $1,500 and $2,000 for a costume. So we just went on the higher end. So with that being said, can I get a first and second motion? And this is simply just to bring it to the table to discuss.
Yep, this guy. Mike Palmer.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Stephanie Byers. Perfect. Okay, so at this point, it is open for discussion. If anybody wants to say anything or.
But is your sister has a kid in school that she can vote on it?
It is family.
It says that,
It is
that's
family.
my knowledge of the bylaws.
It's any family, guardian, or parent that's stated in the bylaws.
Okay.
Would anybody like to discuss it, or do we just want to vote on it?
Out of curiosity, do you have someone picked out already to wear the costume?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot.
Oh, good.
There's a volunteer list, we'll get started.
I figured, sounds like you're interested.
Yeah.
So I wasn't here, I apologize, I'm not, but is it an adult mascot costume or a kid?
Yes, it would be an adult.
Oh.
Yeah, and you choose, I don't know what size we would do, but essentially you would have to choose a size. So I figured that out.
Wow. Was there talk of maybe, because I know in other schools, sometimes they'll have like a 5th grader be like there's one, you know, the kids will be the mascot, and it's kind of a 5th grade thing, or, you know, a kid thing, which I thought would be really cute.
Yeah,
That might be cheaper too.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of teachers and parents are like willing to get inside of the costume. So I'm open to it all.
So just to clarify, so we just, the vote was just to like look into bids for the mascot.
The vote is essentially to approve the mascot, and then once it's approved, I didn't want to go out and get quotes without it being approved.
Okay, so it's like a go ahead, like we're interested in a mascot, and then we'll come back with the financial piece, because I remember like last year, we have to have like very specific number amounts of like,
Right,
we're approving this number.
right.
Just because $2,000 seems like a lot of money to me.
Yeah,
And
so,
I haven't looked into them, it's a lot of money. It's a lot.
No, very expensive.
Yeah, they're very expensive,
Yeah.
but they last a long time. So I did quite a bit of research, being that I'm very interested. On average, most schools that run a mascot costume and maintain it properly, they're like 12 to 15 years of life out of the product. So that's why they're more expensive than, a Halloween costume or a high-end, costume like that. So the big thing that I was looking at though is care and maintenance isn't that difficult and it isn't that much like cost-wise. You get it dry cleaned every so often to make sure it doesn't smell or so you don't have to do a ton of upkeep if you get a good one out the gate. Otherwise, you have a Jaguar with one eye by year 3 and the kids are a little scarred.
But we'll like approve that official amount when like the bids come back and we'll.
yes, yeah, and then we'll vote on which costume. I'll do 2 separate ones and we can vote on which one.
Maybe I wonder should we the kids one? Just to see?
We get the kids one in there too. Okay.
Just as far as like the list of people who want to volunteer and stuff, it is going to be approved, like people who have background checks and
Oh, it'll be.
absolutely. Okay, I'm just
Yes.
okay. And also, yeah, and just like
Most of them
we'll all know each time who is in there. And okay.
Most of them are teachers.
Yeah.
So poor Jill over here made a comment that since she's a PE teacher, nobody will miss her anyway.
More meant that at the assembly, like, the kids would notice if their classroom teacher just all of a sudden wasn't here. They wouldn't notice if I, like, was not a part in the. Yeah. Like, they wouldn't be like, who's not here? You know?
Song going.
Oh, yeah.
When I was a kid going to Bear Creek, we had the Bear Creek Bear mascot, and a teacher wore it, and every kid loved it. Every time we had an assembly, anytime we had an event, we had barbecues towards the end of the school year. The bear was out there with, they had music playing, and the bears dancing. All the kids loved it. So when I heard about this, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this school needs a mascot!" But it was always worn by a teacher.
Yeah, so the plan would be to have it worn at like first day of school by the vice principal, someone administrative level. That's not going to be there to greet your child and be like, oh, so it's teachers mainly, very limited parental volunteers. We're mostly offering this for teachers, administration, for first day of school, spirit week, fundraisers within our school, carnival, last day of school, stuff like that. It's not like a
Everyday thing.
It's not like an everyday thing. It is very much like a quality item that someone will need to be in charge of dry cleaning on a schedule, either biannually or annually at the end of the school year. That will be worked into the budget for next year. That's my plan. Personally, I'm voting no just because I want it to go to next year. So that way we can budget accordingly for care of item and just so that way we have the time to, there's no reason to take the time to pick out the options and do it and then just roll it into next year's funding. But if you want it this year, that's cool too. I think we're not behind, like we don't have a budget deficit. We've already budgeted not to meet the amount in savings prior. So there's no like catastrophic things on our end, but it's just how much visibility we want into the future.
If somebody wanted to donate some money towards the costume.
I mean, if someone wants to donate to the PTO, we're always here and willing. And if they specifically would like that, there's no reason you can't donate and say, I would like this to be going towards that. I can provide reports for that.
Anybody else?
Just real quick, going back to Elise's point of just like budgeting and things like that, it might be worth just presenting different options, like what does $1,000 get you versus $2,000 or somewhere in between. That way, when we come back, people can actually see like, hey, the quality of this costume, it makes sense to spend the additional $500 or $1,000 or something like that. And then that point, people can prioritize, is this a want now, or is this something that we should push to next year, going back to Lisa's point?
I don't see any benefit from providing an outline between quality standards of if you buy a $900 costume versus a $2,000 costume. Just, it's there, it's online, it's, you know what we're voting on, you can find it, it's pretty obvious pretty quickly what the quality would be when you look at them. I just want to know how much you guys as members value it and would like to see it happen in monetary form.
I don't think I've ever been to an Elks game where elementary school children weren't chasing Vinny.
Oh, no, like there's 100%, I think a mascot is something that an elementary school should have.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not you want foresight with budgeting and expenses, or whether you have the information.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so is there things that we're going to be putting off by potentially doing this that might have been planned for before, or something, okay, well, we can't do this because now we're spending this up to $2,000 on?
Yeah, so that was what I was saying when looking forward, I don't see any issues that would come up and say, oh my gosh, we can't fund Carnival because of this. That's not the case at all. If anything, we're mostly, we are meeting, if not exceeding by not meeting the budget, if that makes sense. In all areas. Merchandise, we knew it was going like a question mark. But the thing is, the inventory it doesn't expire at the end of the year. So we're not losing money, we're just not making as much as we thought this year. That will just be pushed to the next year. And that just comes from not having the information, because we didn't really sell it. So no, I don't foresee that we will have to cut anything to make this work. It's just purely how risk averse are you as a group and as an individual? I am pretty risk averse as a treasurer and as an accountant. I like to hold a decent amount, especially for a nonprofit. So this budget that y'all voted on in September wasn't even our complete, we still have a balance of expenses of about $7,000. And if it's not going to do anything, it's just, I can't tell you what's gonna happen in March and what the finance, if it costs $200 for a packet of hot dogs, then, yeah, so just, it's fine, but
Anybody else?
Just to help with some of that, according to mascots.com, average first 5-year expenditure is $50 to $75 for cleaning. And then average management after that is around $100 to $150 until about the 10-year mark for rips, tears, velcro replacement, that kind of stuff. And then maintenance goes up from there slightly because it's an older costume. So, just so we have numbers on some of those.
yeah, it's not a huge amount, but.
Well, yeah.
Is that, sorry, was that 50 to 75 in a calendar year?
Yeah, for dry cleaning, for, yeah,
okay,
that kind of stuff, so.
Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Can I have all in favor? Please raise your hand. Keep your hand up. I like how your daughter raises her hand. Okay, go ahead, put your hand. Okay, all opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. All in favor, 1, the motion is approved. Next up, we have Kylie Jagger. Again, I apologize, I totally botched her thing as well, but it kind of worked out because she didn't give us everything, so we're gonna redo it.
Sure.
My name is Kylie Baker. I'm a third grade DI teacher. She's over that corner. Currently, the kids are in I presented this last time, but I was actually adjusting right. I got the numbers wrong because we went off of the ask we did with PTO last year, and we had worked out kind of a half and half deal, so it was only actually half the accounts. So some of you may be familiar with this, some of you not. What it is we're trying to get funding for 4 RAS Kids reading licenses, and what those are is RAS Kids is a level reading program that provides books in English and Spanish. So it uses one of the common reading scales, which is Thompson's Now, and it has reading levels all the way up from basic, like super basic books, up to a higher level, and it lets the kids access books at their level, at their just right reading level, where it's going to challenge them to continue growing their reading ability in both English and Spanish. And this is particularly focused on our DI program as well as our newcomer kiddos in Jewel. And what that means is it's kids in our DI program that work in both languages throughout the day, as well as kids that come into our school and might be new to English or have that access for the first time. And they're like, you want me to read a book in English? What? So this helps break down that barrier for kids that are coming in, as well as our kids that are already here and that we're already serving. What it does is gives each kid access on their own iPad to a virtual format of the books in English and Spanish. So they have a library in English, a library in Spanish. They could be reading at a lower level in English and a higher level in Spanish, but they would have access to the perfect book for both of their languages at that point. It also allows us as teachers to print out physical copies of books, which would let us do small groups or let us send books home with kids so they can continue working at the level that's just right for them. And yeah, it would be used in DI classes as well as in our ELL classes, and sometimes just in average other neighborhood classes for kids that need a little extra support or could benefit from support in their home language as well.
What's the price on it?
So the price for each license is $248. So with 4, it's $992. I did talk to a guy and he was willing to give us a 10% discount for at least this year. So the overall price is down to $893 for 4 licenses, and that gets all of our DI classes, so kindergarten all the way up through 4th grade would have access, and then as well as our ELL teachers, English language learning teachers, so development and that kind of thing. They asked if they could get in on it for some of their kids, so we should have a fair amount of extra licenses if we get the 4 or extra profiles that we can give to them, in addition to just our DI program.
Okay, can I get a first motion to approve? Second, perfect. Okay, up for discussion, comments, questions for Kylie?
Out of curiosity, how many profiles can you have under one license?
We have 36 profiles under our license.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So this would be
Serve.
affecting and reaching about around 150 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this subscription like a calendar year, or will it go until like May of next year?
It goes until whenever we purchase it of next year. And there was the idea of putting it into like a yearly budget for future years if we all like it and it moves, so that could be budgeted forward.
Anybody else?
So, does Bear Creek use this program?
They have used it before. They used it in the past and then they leaned more into what the district offered. What we're finding is things like Epic, which are super popular, have really great books in English and really great level books in English, but it's lacking the Spanish side. And I know I used RAS Kids in Washington when I taught up there. We used it as part of our program all the way through high school. To a certain degree, they have different levels and things. And it was really just to hone in on those reading skills. So yes, but scale back. But I actually, when I taught there, before I taught here, used it with my class and we saw some benefits. It was more we got stuck on that price point of figuring out how to happen it.
Would we just be doing it for this year and then next year would go into, do we want to do this and put it in the budget yearly?
That's kind of where we're sitting, is it's like maybe we try it this year and see if all the teachers and kids are benefiting, and then we talk about possibly adding it into the year. It could be easily.
Did you explore any multi-year discounts, assuming this year is successful and then we revisit it the following year? Like, is there incentives for 2 years or 3 years?
I need to work with the guy that I reached out to at Run, but he seemed like last year he offered us a similar deal. And so I think there's something to be had potentially. And I know it's when you order, I mean, usually when you have multiple licenses, they're like, oh, hey, that's some money.
Ideas? Okay, we'll take a vote on it. All in favor, please raise your hands. I know. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay. Motion approved. I'm sorry. All in favor, one. Motion's approved. Okay, the next one is gonna be Elise talking about the printer that we were talking about last month.
So, I had mentioned that because we switched over to having people use their personal printer to not having people use their personal printer for work, that printing costs are higher than, slightly higher than we expected. Not a huge amount, but enough that we would like to explore purchasing a color laser printer just for PTO. So you'll find it in your packets, what the printing cost was for the last 3 months, September, October, November. I took those across and then I did a forecast and found how much it will cost us yearly, based on those numbers, and then how much it will cost us per page for 3 different types of printers. As far as I can tell, the only difference in laser printers is the speed and the quality of print. Neither of which are incredibly important since we're not doing super high volumes, but we are printing about 20,000 pages a year. So that's why they're already costs. The paper and the toner, same price, same cost. And then, so either way, whether or not we purchase a printer or we don't, we will be like slightly over on budget by $300. So, yes.
I was curious, I think it's a great idea.
We gotta do the first and second motion before.
Well, I just have a question. What about maintenance? Because as a teacher, it goes to print stuff and there's always a printer that's dying. I would just be curious if we use our PTO budget to maintain it, if something needs to be fixed.
So that is built into the cost of toner.
Okay.
And then, so as far as maintenance goes, this isn't one of those huge, like really, like it's not a giant piece of machinery. It's just like it's a basic laser printer, black, white. It's not going to do super high quality color because it's a laser printer, but it's going to be cheap.
I get a first and a second motion. Okay, can I get a second? Okay. Discussion? Any questions, comments?
Where will the printer be kept?
That is the question. We would try to ask for approval to have it somewhere in the school. Just it would make more sense. So people, when they print materials for flyers and stuff. Or it would have to live at.
Sorry, I might have, because I was checking on it. I missed the cost.
Oh, so the cost is, the printer itself is anywhere between $340 and $400. And then we do about 20,000 pages per year. So the paper cost is about $300 per year, just for paper. After this year, we're in the middle of the year, so we have slightly different figures the first year. But this is like long-term cost. And then toner is about $600.
So the $300 printing cost, you said, is that equal for whether you print in color or in black and white? or is it an additional fee to print a color every time?
So I actually went through, I went through the receipts and got the percentage of black and white to color pages that we did. And in the formulas I used to find the numbers in there. I did the percentage that we used. So it's two cost equations broken down by two options. And then at the very end, so it's total and it's accurate to type.
Anybody else?
And then if I remember right, there is budget this year for your, like you use an offsite printer, someone to print, correct? And so and this, we're hoping is like the $900 yearly cost between
So-
paper and toner.
Yeah,
would be
because
less than what you're paying.
So once the cost of the printer is recouped, yes, it will be cheaper to use the printer. But especially because, so the printing expenses, the reason they're gradated is because in the budget, the different line items, some go, like printing sometimes goes towards administration, sometimes it goes to mini mutters, sometimes it goes to different, so it's not just, so that's why I gave it to you all right there, every single printing expense across all categories. So we budgeted $500 for administrative, like a PTO meeting and support. So like we're on track to be over that by about $200, which is about, but at the same time, then you add in mini mutter, you add in all these other extracurricular, like, things that we want to tell you. So, I mean, that's another thing. Do you want us to, like, you don't want to, somehow we have to print it. So we can pay someone to print it for us, or we can pay to maintain it. Either way we're paying.
The other thing to just keep in mind is, so here at the school, we have printers, we have copiers, and then we have the print shop. So most expensive is the printers, the next most expensive is the copiers in the building, and the least expensive is the print shop. But print shop takes a lot of planning ahead, because it'll take anywhere from a week to 10 days before you get that back. So we call them convenience clicks, which is where we use the copier because we're like, oh, we have to get this out, and we didn't have time to set up a printer. So the benefit of having a printer that you guys would just have would be if you're like, oh, there's this thing coming up that we hadn't planned on, or it's a real cool opportunity, but it's kind of a short window, you would actually have the ability to print it and then not.
And on those ones, we've been just using our personal printers, because those inevitably happen.
The PTO can use print shop though, correct, or no?
We can. I have looked into it, but just like Jesse said, it takes a lot longer. You have to submit things because our priority would be very low compared to staff in the buildings. And we're talking about 13 schools plus the other departments.
I think the location piece of the printer seems kind of important to me, just because if the printer is being moved from, like, say, a home to another home, to fill out potential for
It, yeah, it would need to stay, like, once we found a spot in the school, it would need to stay in the school, and then the next year, someone else is like, nope, the printer doesn't get to stay there, it would stay in someone's house the entire year. And they're the printer, like, that's just.
There are options for carrying cases and different things as well, which when I was in the service, we had one, even though it stayed in the same spot all the time, there was rules
Yeah,
that made.
I mean, they're really
break things.
pretty.
Yeah, so they make some pretty
But I agree that it would
hardcore
take-
Pelican cases.
I don't wanna have to manage the printer. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
I just think of like a home in young kids and then pet, and like,
Yeah.
all the possibilities of something going wrong and then.
Have you found print shop to be a big delay in the past?
They've never utilized it because of the amount of time that the notice that we have to get the print shop.
What is the time span?
Anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, because we're not,
Right.
we're
It's not
just
high
an
priority.
affiliate.
I just was curious Whatever.
And I think in the past it has been where they've done a lot of printing on their own devices or using.
Well, I meant the past with print shop, if you've done print shop.
I did research it because I work at the Ed Center, and that's the information that I gave. And Brian was very helpful, but he was like, your best option is not to use the print shop.
Okay.
Cedra?
But if we have a schedule, like if we plan the stuff a year ahead of time, we should be able to submit like paperwork to get the mini matter printer stuff or the carnival. Because if you send this 3 weeks, I think if we know when are we having the mini matter, we should be able to submit to get prints, don't we? Can we not?
I can agree with that. However, with it being a new board, I don't know how you guys felt, but with it being a new board, you're kind of just thrown into things and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. Oh my gosh, I need to print this. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this. You know what I mean? So we're just now like
Dates
finally,
change, links change.
we're
QR
just now
codes
finally like
change.
starting to breathe, and now
Yeah.
we can like plan.
I personally wouldn't sign up for a volunteer position to do like that amount of lead time. It's just not gonna happen. Yeah, we cannot get dates a month in advance or times and QR codes. It could happen 50% of the time for some of our like more like the bigger ones maybe. But even so, like all the little tiny pieces of communication.
Plus the translating.
Yeah.
But we like the carnival, we already have a set up date.
We have the date, but we don't have any of the other information to provide.
That's one, but for like the mini matter, you also have a setup date, so we should be able to send out a request right when school starts. And so, okay, can we get it by October? That's when we get the mini matter.
And I
So
understand that the beginning of the year is not a good time because you have all the staff coming back and they're putting in their orders, which is why I initially looked into it and found that Brian's like, I can't guarantee that you would get any of that before the date that we needed it.
I do have to table this because we have other things for tonight, so if we're not ready to vote on it, I do have to table it for next month. Would you guys like me to table it for next month, or would we like to vote on it?
Can we, if we table it until next month, can we like come up with where we're gonna store it between now and then and have, because I feel like that's a big question that a lot of people are concerned about.
And I don't even mind, I store all of the merchandise at my house, so if I need to store it, then I will. It'd be nice to have some more of the school, so everyone has access.
Yeah.
So.
I'm confident that we can find a spot in the school. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly where, but there is enough space and nooks and crannies that we can put it somewhere where everyone knows, board knows where it is, and then it would only be attached to your guys' computer, so it wouldn't be accidentally used by our staff, and it wouldn't be served by our staff.
Would we like to vote on it?
I have another question before the vote. So I think you said that we're roughly $200 to $300 planned for over budget for the year, by the end of the year. And then the cost is roughly $900. So it's like a 3-year recoup. Am I?
So for option, so if you go down to the very bottom of the page, you see this is the forecasted cost that anyone is interested in seeing the equations or the data that I pulled from, please email me. So the forecasted cost for printing services for the total school year, so this is for the school year that we are in session for PTO, $1,184. The forecasted cost, if we bought a printer, would be $1,393. That's including the first bit of printing we did using a service and the addition of buying a printer, the paper, the toner for this year, which is less than next year, because next year we'll be printing the whole way through. Does that make sense? That's why you see cost is different, because we've already used a printing service for 4 months. So I'm projecting, okay, out, we did it this way for the finishing of the year, how much is that? It looks to be about a difference of $200. So we will pay $200 more, I'm forecasting, if we buy a printer this year. Next year, when the printer is already purchased, we've wrote off the price, like the unit cost to the accounting books for this year. We are expecting $898 if we print it ourselves.
So it drops.
It drops.
Yeah.
Because this year I'm expecting to pay at least $1,200 for printing services.
Right.
So I'm saying we're gonna be saving, but we're front loading it to the price of the unit, making it easier for us to be able to contact you guys and get stuff into school, like boxes and bins and stuff. And yeah, so it's not a huge amount of savings. It's a huge